Hello everybody, back again with another video. Hope you're doing well. Hope your life's going well. Hope this week has gone well for you, and I hope that today has gone well for you. Today is Friday. We've made it to Friday. It is April the 18th, 2025. It's about 8:15 a.m. Central Standard Time, and I hope that you're all having a wonderful Friday. I hope it's been a wonderful work week for you all, and I hope that you all have something fun planned for the weekend. As for me, I don't know what I have planned for the weekend. I'll figure something out. I kind of want to go on that road trip I was talking about, like where I leave out Saturday and come back Sunday. But I don't know. Like it just seems fun. It's just, like I said yesterday, I just hope that I'm not like too tired on Monday. But at the same time, it's like, okay, as long as I get, between, 7 and 9 hours of sleep, I will be fine. And I mean, I don't know. Anyway, I got an important one for you all today. We're going to talk about some of these toxic ideologies that are on the internet, particularly this whole like red pill manosphere ideology that is very popular on the internet. It's actually very popular here on YouTube, and there's a lot of guys that kind of get sucked into this way of thinking, and when it comes to these spaces, it's very interesting because it's like, on one hand, okay, they give out decent advice, for men, right? Men should work out, work on themselves mentally, spiritually. Men should, develop social skills, and men should, just become the best versions of themselves. But then at the same time, when it comes to these spaces, red pill, manosphere, it gets very, very toxic, right? When they talk about women, right? And relationships. That's where it gets very, very toxic. A lot of them have some very negative views on women. A lot of these red pill manosphere creators here on YouTube, right? They have some very negative views of women, and it's unfortunate that these types of people get very popular, and that sort of those sorts of toxic beliefs about women, they basically spread that on YouTube. And you'll have a guy who didn't have these beliefs before, but when they watched some YouTube video about the manosphere and red pill and women and all that, and then they start taking on these toxic, very toxic beliefs as well, right? And I started thinking about the type of guy that would get sucked into this red pill mentality or take on the ideology of the manosphere, right? I think that people who really take on this ideology strongly are guys that, for various different reasons, have a void in their life, right? Right? Maybe they grew up without a father or a positive male role model in their life, or they grew up not seeing a positive relationship in their life. And so it's like, for somebody like that has a void in their life, it's easy for somebody like that to kind of get sucked into this rabbit hole of watching all of these red pill type videos, manosphere type videos, and they develop some very toxic, messed up views about women. And, once that happens, it's very difficult for them to, get rid of those beliefs, right? And, it's very sad how popular these types of videos are. And I believe that these red pill, manosphere, incel type spaces are part of the reason why men and women are divided in a way. It's not the full reason, but I believe, in my opinion, they're part of it. You look at how popular these spaces are, right? And you all know, like, the main leaders, if you will, in this manosphere red pill space. They're very, very popular, right? Like, y'all know who I'm talking about. I mean, there's lots of them, but they spread this real toxic, misogynistic way of viewing women. And it's like, these guys that take on this ideology, I was reading stories about how many of these guys who take on this ideology were in a relationship, and they started viewing some of these popular manosphere creators here on YouTube and on other spaces as well. And it ended up causing the relationship to end, right? It caused so much of an issue in the relationship, because here you have this man now spewing out all of these misogynistic and messed up talking points about women, and obviously, the woman's not gonna like that, and it caused their relationship to end. And now you have this guy who took on this red pill, manosphere, incel ideology, and so they started spewing that sort of messed up viewpoint, toward the people around them, more specifically the woman that they were in a relationship with. And now it caused their relationship to end. And there's so many stories I've read online via different forums about this happening, right? And so now, and I really think this sort of this viewpoint, this ideology, will create a lot of bitter, lonely men that don't like women, right? They hate women. And I really think that it's a huge problem. It really is, because men and women should come together. Men and women should unite. Men and women should work together, right? We get so much further in society, working together versus being divided. And the manosphere and the red pill is extremely divisive, right? And it's sad. It's incredible how easily some of these guys are that get sucked into this, how gullible someone has to be to watch some videos of guys spewing out misogynistic viewpoints, and here they are now taking on misogynistic, toxic viewpoints, right? And when you take on a mentality like that, what you don't understand is that it's going to create a situation where you straight up just hate women. You think that women are the cause for all the problems in the world, right? You're against women's rights, and that's something that I wanted to talk about as well, because one of the main viewpoints that I've seen from many of these manosphere communities, red pill communities, incel, whatever, is that many of them feel like a woman's role is really only supposed to be at home taking care of children, right? And many of them feel like women shouldn't even be allowed to work or be allowed to vote, and they shouldn't have like other rights as well. And part of the reason that, from what I've seen, is that many of them, they'll say, well, women don't use logic, women use emotions. But I would make an argument to that, a counter argument, that humans use logic at times, and humans use emotion at times, right? They think with logic at times, and they think with emotions at times. Make no mistake about it, men can be emotional as well. Don't fall for this silly surface level trap that, well, it's because men are logical and women are emotional. It's a bad argument. Look at all the news stories where a man has harmed a woman in some way, shape, or form because, they got into an argument over something petty, right? And the dude like spazzed out and beat up the woman or something like that. Are you telling me that's not an emotional reaction? So that destroys that argument right there, that men are just logical and women are just emotional. We're humans, right? We're human beings. We all have emotions. We're all emotional. We're all people that are capable of using logic at the same time. It's just that with some people, there are some people that have emotions that will completely override logic. And there are some people where logic will completely override emotions. But that happens with men and women. So this idea is nonsense in a way, right? I think the truth is, when people say stuff like this, is that I will say, in a way, women show emotion more than men. Because what you have to remember is that men in general are taught to kind of, keep their emotions in, suppress their emotions, or, keep their emotions in check. You're not supposed to really show emotion as a man. You're supposed to, you know, keep your head up, keep your head high, and keep going no matter how you feel. So, in a way, many guys don't really show emotion, right? And the only time they will show emotion is when they're by themselves, right? Or they're with a person that they can be vulnerable with, right? And so I think that's truly the case. I don't believe this idea that, well, men equal logic, women equal emotional. And they use this, these red pill manosphere people, they use that sort of ideology, and they'll say, women, they'll say stuff like women vote against their own interest, or just stuff like that. Just all these different silly reasons to then say something, or, follow up with something like, yeah, that's why women shouldn't be allowed to vote, right? And then when we want to talk about their stance on women working, they believe that women should stay home and, take care of the kids. That's their role in society, and only men should be out working. And, that's a really toxic, misogynistic way of viewing this thing as well, because every woman doesn't want to be at home taking care of kids. That's not what every woman wants to do with their life. Are there many women that are okay with doing this? Yes, but not every woman wants that. And they'll say stuff like, well, society was better off when women were at home taking care of the kids and stuff like that. That's why they shouldn't be allowed to vote. To work. Well, they don't want either, but that's why they shouldn't be allowed to work. Here's the thing. Every family dynamic is different, right? There's going to be some families where men go out and work and the woman stays home and takes care of the kids, stay at home mom. And there's going to be dynamics where both the man and the both work. And, you know, maybe we can make the argument that, you know, when a man goes out and works and the woman stays home and takes care of the kids, that maybe, you know, it can be helpful in a family dynamic, because now, you know, the mom can really, you know, focus more on raising the kids. But at the same time, there are many families where both parents worked, both the mother and the father worked, and the kids turned out great. They became some kind of highly skilled profession, such as a doctor, a lawyer. They turned out all right, but both parents worked, right? And the thing about it is, what you have to remember is that nowadays you pretty much need two incomes to be able to, afford to have a family nowadays, right? We don't have a dynamic where, jobs pay enough for someone to, basically afford a family on one income. Jobs don't pay enough to support a whole family anymore, right? If you're by yourself, that's one thing. But, nowadays you need a job that pays well over six figures in order to afford to raise a family on that single income, right? It's very difficult to do it under $100,000 nowadays. And depending on where you are, you need a lot more than $100,000 where you are in America, what state you live in. But, that dynamic is gone anyway. And there's a lot of guys that would say, well, they'll say women should be at home taking care of the kids. And that's just, it's toxic. It's toxic because, this was at a time where women didn't really have a choice. And so guess what? They needed a man. They needed that stable income from a man because they really weren't allowed to go out and get that on their own like that. And so, in a way, a lot of men are saying they want a situation where a woman, needs a man, for financial security, for all these other things. And, wouldn't you want a situation where a woman truly wants to be with you? That's what I think about. Like, you don't want someone, that's there only because they need you, right? You should want someone there because they want to be there with you. They want to grow with you in a relationship. They actually want you for you as a man, for your personality, for your character, for the things that you can provide outside of finances, right? Yeah, if you can provide finances, for, your whole family, woman, kids, that's cool. But this idea that women shouldn't work, I mean, that's sad, and that's a idea that many people in this red pill manosphere community promote, right? They promote this toxic idea, right? This misogynistic idea. And if you're in this space, you really got to get out of this space. If you listen to a lot of these red pill manosphere type guys, you got to get off that. You gotta unsubscribe from their channels and, get away from such a toxic ideology, a toxic mentality, right? And, don't get me wrong. If there's a dynamic where a woman can stay at home, well, let me say this. If jobs still provided enough to raise a family, buy a house and everything on one income, then you probably would see more women opting to stay at home and, take care of the kids while the man goes out and works. But at the same time, there should still be that option for a woman to go out and, make money herself. There shouldn't be this thing where a woman just isn't allowed to go out and make money herself, right? Create a situation where they basically need a man. It's like these guys, they don't like the fact that a woman doesn't really need a man like that anymore. And that's why they push this toxic mentality that a woman shouldn't be allowed to work, because now it's like you don't really need a man for financial security like that. And now it becomes a situation where a woman has options and she can choose the best man for, herself, and who, someone that can, that they can grow with. It's not a situation where it's like they need someone. And a lot of men don't like that. And that's the truth about it. They really don't like that. So, that's the thing about it. I kind of just wanted to come on here and talk about this because this is a problem that is going on out here in society, where a lot of men are being sucked into this mentality. A lot of men that, for whatever reason, have some sort of void in their life. They take on these messed up points of view, and we have to get off of that. We have to come together as men and women, and an ideology like this is just an ideology that's going to keep men and women divided, and more specifically, it's going to keep men bitter, lonely, angry at the world, angry at women, and this mentality has to go. This weird anger and vitriol towards women Got to get off that mentality. Okay, we're at the 30-minute mark. We're going to go ahead and wrap this video up. I really do thank y'all for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. So, yeah.